Welcome to another episode of Money You Should Ask. I'm your host, Bob Wheeler, and in this episode, we're going to explore, examine, question, converse, dig deep, expose, laugh, and cry about the money beliefs, money blocks, and life challenges of our next guest. Turn up the volume, listen, learn, and laugh. I'd like to thank our sponsor, The Money Nerve, a financial resource that helps you have a healthier relationship with money. Do you feel shame around your past financial decisions? Do you feel alone in your financial struggles? Do you self-sabotage your potential financial successes? Do you keep making the same choices, expecting different results? The Money Nerve has just launched a new online course called The Course to Financial Freedom. To learn more, go to themoneynerve.com/course. The Money Nerve has an offer to all Money You Should Ask listeners for a 25% discount on the course. Use code MYSA, all caps, 25, and start your course to financial freedom now. Thanks again to our sponsor, The Money Nerve. Well, I am actually delighted today to have our guest, who is Los Angeles-bred and Brooklyn-based. She's a screenwriter and a playwright, Scarlett McCarthy. Awesome to have you. She's written, I'm going to name a few of her plays because I love the titles. Spandex Only Hides So Much. Bury Me in Leggings, You Are Glowing. What's Up, America? I'm Reptilian. If We Don't Have Sex, I'm Gonna Die. And Augmentation are just a few. She is the founder of Literally Broke, a personal finance company aimed at helping artists and creatives manage their money. So I'm excited to talk about that. She's a graduate of NYU, where she studied dramatic writing and social and cultural analysis. We connected through FinCon, and I want to give a shout out to FinCon because it's an amazing community that connects folks with other folks who create new media, blogging, podcasting, social media, and video about financial topics like debt, investing, and coupons to help educate people about financial literacy. Scarlett, thank you so much for joining. Happy to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to be talking with you.
So I love that you're a playwright. Is like when you were a kid, did you say I want to write plays and I want to, like, what was your dream?
Yeah, I decided I wanted to be a writer when I was 8 years old, which was definitely not great news to my parents.
Okay. Yeah,
both my parents are artists. They had me super young, so they were like, "Oh gosh, this girl's destined for a lifetime of disappointment."
Yeah.
And then in high school, I discovered plays. I really hadn't seen anything besides musicals, and I discovered, drama could be a thing.
Yeah.
And applied to NYU and got in, and I have been writing plays ever since.
Wow. That's awesome. Well, NYU is the place, I think, or one of the places if you're gonna do that stuff. That's awesome. And so your parents weren't super excited. Do you have siblings?
No, it's just me.
It's just you. Okay. Yeah. So, all right. So they didn't have to handle 5 mouths to feed. That's good.
No, just me. Yeah.
How was that being an only child? And did they express disappointment? I mean, I know did they feign disappointment or did they really support you on certain ways? How was that?
Yeah, I mean, my parents are so supportive. I just think originally with the decision to be a writer when you're 8, it's like definitely not what you want to hear.
Right.
But no, they're the most supportive parents in the world. When I was in high school, I actually went to boarding school for writing because I just was really unhappy in public school. So they have completely supported it. And I mean, have definitely suffered financially as a result of that a little bit. So, yeah.
Did you grow up because they were both artists, did you grow up with the conversations that artists are going to be broke? Or what were the mantras? What were the beliefs that your parents laid out for you early?
Yeah, it was definitely really complicated. I grew up in Beverly Hills because my parents wanted me to be in the school district, but I grew up in a 1-bedroom apartment. So compared to all the other kids at school, I constantly felt less than, I had no money. And a lot of shame around that, I think. But my parents were just so young and doing totally the best they could. But yeah, there definitely was this understanding that they had kind of made a life choice to have less money than other people,
Mm-hmm.
Which is something as I've gotten older, I understand more.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely now as I've gotten older and I'm thinking about like, when do I want to have a family? It's super complicated when you have, when your career path is the arts.
Yeah. Do you believe in the starving artist theory that you have to starve for your art?
No, I think that, definitely there are sacrifices to be made to make art. I think that, part of like, it definitely is a cost benefit analysis. Every job I've had has, if you're making more money, you're thinking, am I not working enough on my art? Am I like giving up part of myself? And I think like that is super difficult and something we all have to kind of work through as artists. But coming out of college, I knew that I didn't want to have that, and feel like I'd given up, because I think that's really common. Coming out of programs like NYU's and stuff like that, you kind of come out and take the first industry job you can. But that also has, risks involved with the fact that you may not pursue your art in the end. You may, follow like the path of least resistance, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of the reason I started Literally Broke, is I want people to know how to manage their money, even if like they're working 3, serving jobs. I think that
Right.
that's super important. We shouldn't be like sacrificing our actual goals for financial stability.
Yeah. And how do you, there's sort of a joke, but it's probably not. There's a joke in LA that I'm realizing if you're on the receiving end, it's probably not as funny, but people
Mm-hmm.
will say, oh, I'm a director, I am an actor, I'm a writer. And then it'll be followed up with, what restaurant do you work at?
Right.
Right. And, and that's a little mean, I think, but because I do really believe this piece about working jobs that help support your dream. Like, not every job is the end, like,
Yeah.
but it's a means to an end. And
Mhm.
so, like, I really actually support that. So I don't think I'll tell that joke anymore. But like, I mean, that is pretty
Yeah.
common. And I imagine, as somebody that's like really pursuing their dream, deep down, like, artists are artists, and they're going to find. I think they will try to find any way they can to nurture that creativity.
Yeah. Totally.
And how do you, like, now you're in New York, you've got Literally Broke going on. How do you balance your current life? Like, what's the balance now? And how often do you look at it and reevaluate? Do you look at it and reevaluate? And what are the big struggles?
Yeah. I mean, I'm 4 years out of college now. I think a lot of the evaluation was at the very beginning. Coming out of college, I was like, I have to get a full time job. If I don't, I felt like there was some kind of like failure
Mhm.
thing involved, because I knew that I had, taken out student loans and had to pay those back, and kind of had to, I think I felt like I had to have a return on my education. So I took a full time job that I hated, was miserable, had anxiety attacks like every day,
Yeah.
because it just felt so out of line with what I really wanted. Um, and I think ever since then, it's been a constant kind of struggle to balance those two things. And like, I think I still go through it, where I'm like, is this, what I'm doing in my day job, which I actually really enjoy and is in media, um, is that like actually serving my goals? And it totally has. I'm like kind of like an office assistant receptionist. So in my downtime, I do get to write, and my company is super supportive of that, which has been amazing. Um, but I've also, had 1,000 side hustles, in order to, pay back my loans quicker, you know, um, try and self-produce, try and travel, try and have balance. I, I mean, even now I have a full-time job, probably like 3 side hustles. So it's never ending, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. Why is it important for you to pursue your art?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's, really tied to, I mean, I think when you're up in your situation and you can just kind of feel in your heart that you're not on the right path, I think that's the situations where I'm not writing. I just think I feel very strongly called to write. I don't really know exactly where that comes from, but um, imagining my life without, writing and creating, is so inseparable from like my identity.
Yeah. What do you want people to take away from your writing? Like, when they see a play, when they read your words, when they
Hmm.
see it acted out, like, what do you want people to take away?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely want people to think about it. I don't necessarily think that I want people to like walk away with like a certain lesson or a certain message, but just a way of like viewing the world. I think I'm really interested in like the tensions that come with being a woman, and how like the things that disempower you can also be what feels empowering.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so those are the kinds of things I'm interested in, kind of like wrestling with my on my own and in my writing. So I mean, I want people to walk away, I think, just thinking, critically about like the life they're leading and where they're finding power and like the moments where they feel that.
Mm-hmm. And are you aware of any financial imbalances in your own life as being a woman, as being an artist? And what are those challenges like?
Yeah, I mean, technically I've only ever made, I think, $50 off of playwriting. So that's, that's rough. I mean, I think that you have to have a certain degree of privilege to be pursuing this art form. That, there isn't a huge financial return on, even for the people at the very top. I mean, I took out student loans. My dad took out student loans for me to attend NYU, get a BFA. It's looking back, it feels so crazy. And so there's definitely things where I'm like, this feels like I'm just like stacked, like things are kind of stacked in a way that like it's so easy to fail and feel like you should just quit
Yeah.
because you have like the student loan debt and even negative net worth. And it's super disempowering. And I think that obviously compounds if you have like other identities in the mix, if you're like a person of color. So, I mean, I'm super obviously privileged, but I mean, it definitely is a thing where you see people succeeding in the arts and you know that like their parents are kind of fronting that bill.
Yeah.
So it's hard.
Yeah. What keeps you going though? I mean, I know it's like it's in you. Like, how do
Mhm.
you not get discouraged? Or when you do get discouraged, how do you pick yourself back up and go, this is what I've chosen. This is my path to happiness.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, it's super cheesy. I mean, there are so many times where I've just been like sobbing and have to go on a walk and like listen to a playlist of like inspirational songs.
Uh-huh.
There's like no, I mean, at the end of the day, it's kind of just like, that even when the times you really want to give up, I mean, there have been so many times. I was studying for the LSAT for a while. I was like, you know what, I'm giving up, I'm going to law school. And then, obviously that's also hard. I think the idea that like these backup plans are easy options is also kind of crazy because people dream of going to law school. But
Yeah.
in the arts, you're like, that's the thing I'll do. But yeah, I mean, it's just a thing of like being like, okay, am I going to be the person who quits? And that's okay if you are, but you kind of have to constantly talk to yourself and be like your own hype man. And I mean, it's awesome if you have people in your corner who will alter that, which I'm really lucky to have. But you have to be like, okay, this is what I committed to. This is still what I want. So we're getting back off the floor, so to speak, and marching on.
Yeah. Do you budget now? Do you save? Or I mean, are you trying to, do some of those practical steps to have some kind of safety net or an emergency fund?
Yeah. So I do save. I'm an active saver. I do have an emergency fund. I budget less now. So in January 2019 is kind of when I began like my financial journey, so to speak. I had my net worth was like negative 35,000. It was a mix of student loans and credit cards, because I just really didn't understand how money added up
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
And so I started following a cash budget. I had my paperclip system. It was a very Dave Ramsey-esque
Okay.
scenario.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I was paying for cash at bars in New York. And when I hit my limit, I was like, sorry, guys, gotta go home. Um, so now I kind of know my boundaries and I know like what I'm comfortable spending. And it's kind of like a more mindful thing. I just know what I have to pay off on my credit card every month and what I can hit. And like, I don't monitor my actual categories too much because that makes me a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
But now I kind of have an intuitive sense, and then all my savings is automated, and then all my side hustle income goes towards my student loans. So, I'm my goal this year is to hopefully reach being like net worth positive by the end of 2020. So, crossing my fingers on my way
Awesome.
there. But
Awesome.
yeah.
Let me ask you this, because this is I think this is so important, and I think a lot of people don't have the self discipline to do what you did.
Mhm.
How was it to say to your friends, "I've hit my budget. I'm not buying any more drinks. I'm done for the night." Like, how was that? Like, physically, emotionally, and how did people receive it?
Yeah, it was super stressful to me because I think a lot of the reason I got into debt in credit card debt in the first place was because of this like longing to feel like I belonged or fit in with like the people I went to school with at NYU, and I also went to boarding school and I had a huge scholarship, but I grew up in Beverly Hills, so I always my whole life had this thing of like other people the friends I have more money than me, and like how can I kind
Yeah.
of like bridge that gap. And I think a really easy trap to fall into that is debt. Um, but I think, obviously you kind of realize none of my friends were like, Scarlett, that's crazy. They were all like, cool. Like I think people, once you become vulnerable enough to talk about money, um, are open to it because everyone, even if your family is well off, even if you have a trust fund, everyone struggles with how to manage money and has the feeling like they don't have money, even people who do.
Right, right. It doesn't matter how many zeros come after the one. There's still going to be some challenges.
Yeah.
Um, and I know I have friends that'll say, well, I'd rather try to struggle at $4 million in my trust fund, and have that misery. But it doesn't take away from the fact that there are emotional
Hmm.
uh, beliefs around ourselves about being enough or being worthy, or is everybody judging me because I'm from the one bedroom apartment? Um, I went to a college with very wealthy students. People flew in on their private jets, and everybody drove Maseratis. And I had a $200 Plymouth Fury that was 30 years
Yeah.
old and on scholarship. And so, yeah, it was, I was the country bumpkin with all these people, and it was a little intimidating initially,
Mhm.
and eye opening to see how other people in the world lived.
Yeah.
Because I grew up in a very small town and a very narrow perspective, I think. Um, do you feel like before you told people, or at least in high school, did you feel like people knew that you didn't have as much money? Did you feel judgment, or was it more your own internal story?
Um, it's hard because I think my parents, some of my family members, my parents' families technically have money. So there was always ways of kind of going around things, having, my grandma pay for my birthday parties, having my grandma pay for summer camp, things like that. My parents also aren't the best at managing money. Um,
Hmm.
so there was a lot of like, we spent all this money on XYZ. Now they were just like, and there's a constant kind of level of stress. Um, so on one hand, I think I probably, passed as being affluent and no one, thought anything of it. Um,
Hmm.
but then they'd come back to my apartment and see that obviously like this was not equating. You can be dressed in like the same kind of clothing, but you know, my parents still are struggling technically. I mean, they
Right.
wouldn't say that, but from where they could have been, had they not had a child that young, it's, you're kind of set up for a different life.
Yeah. It's sort of reminds me of I think that movie was Lady Bird.
Yes.
I don't know where is she, the Sacramento girl trying to, not that you're on the wrong side of the tracks, but just trying to fit in with everybody else.
Yeah. I mean, there's a scene in the movie where they go to like all the houses and look at them, and that was something my
Yeah.
mom and I used to do. We used to go drive through like the hills of Beverly Hills and be like, oh, that's the one we're gonna buy. Like once like XYZ happens for their art. So there was always a sense of like, oh, money's coming. It's coming. We're gonna have
Right.
our big break, and like we'll all be rich, and then everyone else will like they won't matter.
Right. Exactly. And have you come, like, do you still have that longing for money to come, or are you at peace that whether it comes or not, it's going to be okay? Or like, where do you feel like you are emotionally around all that?
Yeah, I mean, now I think I realize that how you manage money matters so much more than your income level. Obviously, we see countless celebrities like squander what they've earned.
Hmm.
If you don't know how to manage it when it comes, then you can be really screwed and really vulnerable to a lot of people who want to take advantage of you or your own whims.
Hmm.
So I think now I'm more of a sense of like I'm very fortunate in so many ways. I have more than I like really need, and I think maintaining like a practice of gratitude is like so important in order to like kind of understand. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What was the impetus that made you decide to get on this money path? Like, did some specific incident happen and you said, tomorrow I'm starting fresh?
Yeah, kind of. I think there was like a kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak. I was out to, it had just been one of my best friend's birthdays. We went out to dinner, and obviously it was her birthday. I was like, oh, I have to pay for this. And then we went out to drinks, and I was like, oh God, I have to pay for this. And so I just put it on my credit card, and I just realized like I should not feel so stressed up celebrating someone's birthday. Like I want to be able to
Right.
pay for this and not feel stressed, not like I'm accruing more debt and like I have to like answer for it later. Yeah, so I was just like, I'm done. And the next day I listed out all my debt in a Google Excel sheet and was like, Google sheet, and was like,
Yeah.
this is it. I'm going to knock this all out.
Wow. That's awesome. That's awesome. And with Literally Broke,
Mhm.
like, do you meet with people one-on-one? Do you have groups and people can, or is it a resource? Like, and what was the impetus for that? Like knowing that other artists struggle, but like, again, what led you to that? Because you could be working another job to make some extra money to pay off some like, but you said no, I'm going to do this.
Yeah, it was a few things. So last year I self-produced my first play, Bury Me in My Leggings, and I was Googling like how do you self-produce a play? How, like, and there just aren't that many resources for how you fund a project you really want to fund without like putting yourself into like financial insecurity. So that was one of the reasons. And then also, I mean, there is a lot of personal finance content targeted at women, but it's really targeted at women who are like trying to climb a corporate ladder or have like a very linear career path. And as someone who, my current day job is not necessarily like my dream job, because I mean, my dream job is, being like a showrunner, kind of like being, that kind of thing. But like, how do you get there from where you are? And just kind of like the practical advice that like artists need to both like fund their dreams and, pursue their like careers that they do want, which is not so linear. It's very circuitous and weird. So kind of, I wanted to create what I wanted. And then currently I'm not meeting with anyone. I just started doing workshops though, because once the protest started, I was like, I feel like I need to be like helping fundraise in some way. So I'm doing pay what you can budgeting workshops right now on Saturdays, and all the funds raised are going towards bail funds. And so that feels really cool, and it feels like I'm like developing something that I feel excited about, and also like has a give back component. I'm struggling though with like how to know like what Literally Broke's future is though, for sure, because right now it is a blog, but a blog on its own is not necessarily like a moneymaker.
Yeah. No, but it's informational and it's advocacy,
Yeah.
and I think helps give people support or hope that are artists.
Yeah.
So I think that's awesome. All right, I'm going to take a turn where to a completely different. What is one of your money vices? Where do you spend money where you probably shouldn't, but like I got to?
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm the classic. I love a Starbucks trip. So I'm very guilty of that.
What feels so good about that? Like, what's the pleasure?
Yeah, I think it's the ritual. I think there's something about either starting your day, it's just like the idea that like, I mean, when I was going to my office job every day, it was like going and getting it and having them like mobile ordering it. It just feels like magic, and then it's there and it's exactly what you want every time. There's something just so pleasurable about that.
Yeah.
And now in quarantine, it's like the thing that kind of breaks up my day. Like at 3 p.m., I'm like, okay, I've done enough work. I can go get a Starbucks, which is so bad. I mean, I've also been going to local businesses. I don't want to like be the worst person ever, but
Okay.
yeah,
So you go to Pete's or you go to Johnny's Coffee. It's not just
not just Starbucks, but I am, I love to go get a coffee, and I think you can't take it away from me.
And what's your average a daily coffee budget?
$5. I'm not
$5.
Yeah, not crazy. I think my Starbucks order is like $4.37.
Okay. And that's budgeted in.
Yeah, I know that that's like what I spend, and I'm at peace with it.
Now, some people, if they hear this, might say, well, coffee, that's one of the things you're supposed to take out of the budget. Like, I mean, I even, I know for me, I used to go to Coffee Bean and Pete's, not as much Starbucks because I Coffee Bean was first, and I wanted to give them the props, but had to have a frappuccino, and it had to be the large one because it's a better deal. And oh well, maybe the croissant, and oh, or the ham sandwich, and I would do that every day. And oh my God, I'm spent. So, and I couldn't get, so I had to wean myself off because I was being ridiculous. So then I made it every Friday. And then on Fridays, I could have the large Frappuccino. Um, Now I don't go, now I actually bought an espresso machine and I make a lot of my own stuff. But yeah, it's just funny. So some people might give you grief about that, but I love that. This is what I want. It's in my budget. I'm gonna drink my coffee, so back off.
I am very pro people buying the things that like they value, and if it brings you joy, like
Absolutely.
good for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What do you not like to spend money on?
Honestly, clothing. I really don't
Yeah.
like to buy clothing. I don't like to buy just like weird things. I like don't really like to buy for skincare or things like that. I like buy everything at Trader Joe's. I'm really cheap about stuff that other people are like really gung ho about and like indulging in.
Yeah. That's I don't like spending money on clothes either. People give me a lot of grief. I'm very cheap.
Yeah.
Um, I'm very cheap. Um, Now, I know it's too early to ask this because I know that you're going to have a long, long career and things are going to be amazing. But if you had to write your own obituary today, what accomplishments would you want to include? And what would you want some of those future accomplishments be?
Ooh. I mean, I think I'm really proud of Literally Broke. I'm really proud of all the things I've written. Future accomplishments. I mean, I would love to, I really look up to like Ryan Murphy and Shonda Rhimes. Those are the kind of careers I want to emulate. I want to have a mini empire, so to speak. So, I mean, I would belong but at the end of the day, I would really love to have accomplished something that like helps people and brings people joy and, changes the world for the better. I don't want to, money is not the goal or like the accomplishments aren't the goal.
Yeah. And what in helping people, what do you want your footprint to be? What do you want the legacy to be?
Yeah. I mean, I'm very passionate and I feel very strongly that like my mission in life and whatever I do is like to help women and girls. And I felt that for a long time. So I'm very passionate about intersectional feminism and making sure that, women have equity no matter like their race, background, where they're located. So that's something I'm really passionate about. And obviously, if I were to have more money one day, I would definitely be throwing all my money into that. Yeah.
And what would you say to young women today, women of color, women with disabilities, women with challenges of all kinds? What would you say to young women today coming from you?
Oh, I mean, it's so complicated, but I mean, I think that knowing that what's knowing that like you are part of like a lineage is something I feel very strongly, and I just constantly think about my mother, my grandmother, and how things are so different within such a short period of time. But feeling like you do owe something to those who came before you, I think is really important, and to those who came after you. And having that in mind with anything you do really is like, how is it impacting those who come later, and like paying homage in a way to like those who came before you.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. I'm a big ally of women's rights. I have a lot of aunts. I have a lot of sisters. And I've seen like my grandmothers had to give up careers to take care of their brothers or their husbands, and really, I think, got cheated out of some opportunities. And so yeah, I'm all about women's empowerment. So I think that's awesome. Where can people find you on social media?
Yeah, on Instagram, that's where I'm most active, I would say. It's at Literally Broke blog. And then my website is literallybroke.com. And those are where you can find the most updated info and what's going on.
Yeah, well, I just want to say, like, I really appreciate you showing up and talking about all this. And what I really heard you say that I want to reiterate, because we didn't really spend a lot of time on it, but you talked about gratitude
Hmm.
and gratitude, helping other people, and paying forward and honoring the people that came before you, and that. Really, that happiness isn't measured by the amount of dollars, but like find what your passion is, uh, spend on what gives you pleasure, and like, yeah, really just like own that.
Hmm.
Like there's no shame in the path you choose, um, but choose it and go for it.
Yeah,
Really.
I mean, totally.
Well, that is so awesome. Well, I'm so appreciative to have you here, Scarlett. And again, to the audience here, please don't forget to share the love. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Search for Money You Should Ask, all one word. You can subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast player. Scarlett, awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time and sharing.
Thank you so much for having me.